We must warn men. We must tell men that God all day long extends out His hand to a disobedient, obstinate people, but at the same time, the wrath of God comes upon the world. Because God is a righteous, holy God. Have you not read the book of Revelation? This is not just Old Testament teaching. That the wrath of God will come in such a way that men will cry out, the great captains and leaders of this world will cry out that the rocks fall upon them to hide them from the wrath of the Lamb. The wrath of God. Well, I just don't believe that. Well, just what you believe doesn't really matter. What does Scripture teach? There is the wrath of God, and it is the result of Him being righteous and holy and even loving and good. Can God be loving and not move against wickedness? No. Can God be good and be apathetic towards evil? Absolutely not. God will judge men. He will. But the question is this: how can anyone be saved? Here's our answer: the cross of Jesus Christ. You say, what do you mean, Brother Paul? The cross of Christ. That Christ went to that tree and He died. And with His death, He satisfied the justice of God. The Bible says all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. The Bible says the wages of sin is death. Christ became a man, lived a perfect life under the law, went to that tree and died the death of His people. And in dying that death, He satisfied God's justice and appeased the wrath of God. Now let's look for a moment in the time that we have at the cross. Now listen. I was teaching several years ago in a seminary in Eastern Europe. It was all Germanic, and I was very tired, and I'd been teaching all day, so I went into the library, and I was looking there for a book to read. And I came across a book. It said The Cross of Christ. Now, it wasn't John Stott's book. It was another one. It said The Cross of Christ. So I pulled it off, and I began to read it. And I found the place. And this is what the author said. God looked down from heaven at the suffering that was inflicted upon His Son by the hands of the Romans on that cross. And He counted that as payment for our sin. That's heresy. Did you catch it? That's heresy. You say, what do you mean it's heresy? My dear friend, if you are saved here tonight, you are not saved merely because the Romans beat Jesus. You are not saved merely because they nailed Him to a tree. If you are saved because when He was nailed to that tree, He bore your sin, and God the Father crushed His only begotten Son. It was God who had to measure out the punishment. It is God who had been offended. It was God's wrath that had been kindled. It is God's justice that had to be poured out. Someone to save a people for God had to interpose and suffer the judgment, the wrath, the justice of God. Have you never read in Isaiah chapter 53 verse 10, and it pleased the Lord to crush Him? It fulfilled the will of Yahweh to crush His only begotten Son. Now let's just look at that for a moment. Jesus is on that tree. And on that tree He cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" I heard one preacher, I've heard it several times, preachers saying God could no longer look upon His Son because He couldn't bear to see His Son's affliction. That's not what Jesus taught. What did He teach? My God, why have you forsaken me? Why have you abandoned me? He's directing us back to Psalms 22, and I want you to go there just quickly with me. We won't get through our text, but at least we'll get some of it. Psalms 22, verse 1. My God, why have you forsaken me? Far from my deliverance are the words of my groaning. Oh, my God, I cry by day, but you do not answer, and by night, but have no rest. Here is the complaint of the Messiah while He's on that tree. Why have you forsaken me? And then He gives an argument in verse 4. In you our fathers trusted. They trusted and you delivered them. To you they cried out and were delivered. In you they trusted and were not disappointed. There has never been a time in the history of the covenant people of Israel that a righteous man called out to you and you did not deliver him. But I, your son, the Messiah, I hang on this tree. I have done no wrong. Why have you forsaken me? And then He gives the answer. Verse 3, you are holy. Verse 6, but I am a worm. On the cross. Well, you know all those little tracts, don't you? God's holy and man's not. And there's this great division in between the two. Don't you see, in order to close that breach, someone had to die outside of the favorable presence of God. Someone had to bear sin. Someone had to become a curse. Someone had to be like that scapegoat. The leaders of Israel would come out and lay their hands upon that goat, symbolically transferring the sins of Israel to that goat. One goat would be slaughtered and another would be driven outside the gates of the city, left in the wilderness to wander and die. So Christ suffered outside the gates of the city, cut off from God, cut off from His favorable presence, and cut off from the people of God, in order for that gap we're always talking about to be brought back together. Someone had to die, separated from God's favorable presence, and separated because He bore the sins of His people and became a curse. Even before His own Father. Have you never read Galatians chapter 3? Cursed is every man who does not abide by all the things written in the book of the law so as to perform them. Every man who has broken even one law of God is under a curse. What does it mean to be under a curse? It's a very difficult thing. It's such a horrible idea. Let me put it to you this way. To be accursed means that before a holy God and a holy heaven, we would be so heinous in our sin, so vile, that the last thing we would hear when we took our first step into hell would be all of creation standing to its feet and applauding God because He's rid the earth of us. But then it goes on in Galatians 3:13 and it says, but Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law. How? Becoming a curse for us on our behalf.